Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of PR from the Heart Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 187. That is the 187th trolley stop here at PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight Series as part of the continuing 5-year anniversary celebration of the program that we are now into the month of October. It has been such a blast to be able to reconnect with many of our favorite neighbors from over the course of the past 5 years. Again, my name is John Masiulionis, the manager here at PR from the Heart and the host of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. If you hear my little guy, little Forrest, taking some time enjoying a nice collagen treat on his end of things, of course, certain things have changed from the very beginning. Of course, my faithful furry friend, little Forrest, is with me each and every trolley stop here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And we're really excited about today's trolley stop. And you know why? Numbers. Why not? You can go 1, 2, 3, 4. You can start with the low numbers, and then you get all the way up to 365. And of course, when we hear the number 365, we know that there's 365 days in a year. But did you realize how many things that you can do during the course of the year? A lot. Your life can change over the course of 1 year. There's so much magic and many miracles that can happen in one day, let alone in 1 year. And oftentimes we do our part to be able to become better versions of ourselves in the process. But one of our favorite neighbors, who's been with us almost since the beginning of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, is reminding us to have some fun along the way. Bring back a little bit of that inner child. Actually, fully bring back your inner child in the process. One of the top books of 2023 is now available. We are super excited for the return of not only our featured guest in the Children's Book Spotlight Series, but for the release of 365 How to Count a Year. It's courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Simon & Schuster, Beach Lane Books. We encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Amazon.com, and you can leave your 5-star review for 365 How to Count a Year. That's one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Miranda Paul, to let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books. You can also head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and check out your copy, purchase your copy there. If they do not stock their copy of 365 How to Count a Year, make that kind recommendation that they stock this book, because it is one of the best books of 2023. We're not just saying that because Miranda Paul has been with us from almost our first trolley stop. I believe we go back, your bingo numbers for this week's episode of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We obviously have number 187, but we have 111, 83, and 50. If you want to see how Miranda and I have grown together over the years, we've also included her previous trolley stops on the Children's Book Spotlight Series in the links below, where we had the chance to talk about Little Libraries, Big Heroes, Speak Up, and of course the collaboration with her husband, Baptiste. So joining us, the trolley always likes to rack up some mileage. We head on over cross country from San Diego, California, all the way over to the beautiful state of Wisconsin. Joining us in her return to the Children's Book Spotlight Series, award-winning children's author, Miranda Paul. I see the books in the background. You look so happy and joyful, and you're back to your pre-pandemic schedule. So good to have you back aboard the program, Miranda. How are things with you today?
It's great to be back. Another trip around the sun. Here we go. It's October, and I've got a bright orange and red cover. It's just the perfect time. Really excited. We just threw a book birthday party, and Amazon made it an editor's choice best book of October for 2023. So I'm really excited. I love numbers, and so let's talk numbers.
I can sense this already. Of course, for all of you who are new to our neighborhood, one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Miranda, as well as us here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, and even if you've been with us for the very beginning, or you've joined us along the way, we encourage you to subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel if you haven't had the chance to do so, and join the near 7,000 members of the PR from the Heart family. That is our subscribers on YouTube. We appreciate the continued support, the growing of our channel, the growing of the Children's Book Spotlight Series platform. Miranda, you've grown a lot over the course of the past 5 years, and it's interesting. We can insert our count reference from Sesame Street. We have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, all the way on up to 5. Before we talk about 365, how to count a year, so much has happened over the course of the past 5 years. Obviously, we were in the midst of the pandemic. In your opinion, just kind of looking at things from like the 30,000 feet in the air perspective, how do you feel the world of children's literature has evolved and changed over the course of the past 5 years?
Well, I really think that children's literature, especially if you go to the younger sections, but everywhere in children's literature, there's really a heyday in terms of the quality of children's literature that's out there. The choices, there's a book, there's a book for that, there's a book for this, there's a book for everything. They say, 5,000 plus new children's books come out every year, and which is really exciting because you can find a book that sort of speaks to you no matter what. Every kid can find a book that speaks to them. And for me, it's really exciting to sort of have gone through the past 5 years and still cranking it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is book number 22 for me. I hope I never hit an end, to the books that are coming out. But I just see friends, colleagues, new talent, everybody just really, hitting it out of the ballpark with some amazing fiction, nonfiction, stories that touch your heart, stories that, teach nonfiction concepts in the most innovative ways. So I'm really jazzed about it. And for me personally, I have, in these last 5 years, some of you know that in 2019, I sort of began the journey on becoming a literary agent as well. So now I've had my hand in over 75 different projects. And that's been really exciting to just usher a lot of new books onto shelves and watch all of these books just fly.
One of the things that I really admire about you, Miranda, is that, as we said, like so much can happen in the course of a year, let alone a month, let alone a week, let alone in a day. It's very easy to see, wow, Miranda Paul, she's got all her stuff together and all of these things are being cranked out, all these projects. You said this is book number 22. What are some of the things that help you specifically stay focused and stay grounded? Because you're very dedicated to your craft. And when I've seen you in the course of our interviews, our connections together, you're very spot on, you're very precise, you're very mindful of like exactly here is where you are, here is where it is that you'd like to be. But you also enjoy the process along the way. What are some of the things that you attribute to keeping yourself grounded and balanced so that you can stay on track?
Well, one of the things that I really talk about, and I've been talking about since I was, let's say a fledgling author, is motivation. I think early on, when I came to children's books, I have found that motivation and momentum, and I haven't lost it. Despite all of the challenges, as you know, that come in with any creative industry or any industry really. But I just never lost that motivation because I feel so deeply that this is what I'm meant to do, like working in children's books. Those of us who have had other careers and jobs before, we have something to compare it to, right? And I know that this is a good fit because it feels still like it's my first day in children's literature, even though, it's been quite a long time now, because I really, really love it. I do take joy to take Jane Yolen's title of her book. I do take joy in the whole process. And one thing that I do that I don't know if other people do this, but every trip around the sun, our technology, like our Facebook or our iPhones, they make these things that are like memory reels. And I am one of those people who can take, 10 minutes sometimes in a day, or maybe not every day, but a couple times a week. And I look through those memories because it is important to see where we were and how far we've come. And looking through, rolls like a camera roll, or looking back through even a photo album really shows you growth. right? I mean, it also shows you the growth in terms of lines and wrinkles on your face, but it shows you
Yep.
where you've been and all the things that you've been doing, right? You haven't been idle. So even for those people who might be watching who are trying to accomplish a goal and thinking it hasn't happened yet, I bet if you scroll through 365 days worth of memories, you're going to find, oh, wow, like I've come a long way since then, or my thinking has changed since then, or I've grown and changed in some way since that.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it always helps when we have mirrors to reflect back to us how far that we've come. We can tend to be very abrasive on ourselves, very hard on ourselves, and say, man, I really don't feel like I'm that far. And then you have like a friend or a colleague or a family member that say, are you kidding me? Like, here's where you were and here's where you are. And I always go back to one of my favorite animated films, Shrek, when Donkey and Shrek have the conversation about the onion, and there's the different layers. So there's times where, in essence, you may feel that you're maybe a little bit behind. Sometimes you might just wonder where it is that you are, but you're peeling the layers of the onion. You're always further than where you are. I know that sometimes people will call it that staircase, so to speak, where in essence you're like, 2 steps further than where you are, and you're kind of looking at things from like that bigger perspective, so to speak. We're almost ready to dive inside the pages of one of the newest children's books, one of the best children's books of 2023. It is now available, 365 How to Count a Year. It is now available courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Beach Lane Books through Simon & Schuster. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for our featured guest on the Children's Book Spotlight series, one of our favorite neighbors, Miranda Paul. You can head on over to Amazon.com, leave a 5-star review. Again, one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Miranda is to let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books by leaving a 5-star review for 365 How to Count a Year, or any and all of her other 20 plus other children's books. You could probably spend a lot of time on Amazon just going through Miranda Paul's children's books. That's a good way to spend 365 days during the course of the year. Just make sure that you're being mindful of your other commitments and responsibilities as well, too. Before we dive inside the pages, because just the creation, the colorfulness, there's so much to talk about this book. One of the things that we always love talking about on the Children's Book Spotlight series, and you kind of alluded to it previously, is to look back to see how far that we've come. Through your career, undoubtedly, you've experienced some form of challenge, small, medium, large. If you kind of look back over the past 5 years to see how far that you've come, now that 365 How to Count a Year has been released, what are some of the largest challenges that you feel that you've overcome through your life, through your career, as a writer, and obviously being in the literary agent world as well too? And what were some of the specific things that helped you to move through to the other side of those challenges? What are, let's say, 2 or 3 of the biggest ones that come to mind?
That's a huge question, John, because there's a lot of challenges that come up. Obviously, on the personal side, you lose people, right? You lose people who are very, very dear to you, and especially in this particular world of children's creation, we are wonderful people. We make friends, very deep friendships very quickly. And that has happened. We've had to lose people. In 2019, you remember I was on the Children's Book Podcast, and Little Libraries, Big Heroes was coming out, and we had just the year before lost Todd Bowl, who I knew and the book is about. So that's happened more than once to me, where someone that I've worked with a book on or about has passed away, and that's difficult, to deal with big losses. And one of the impetus for 365 was, how do you try and count a year in the fun ways instead of just the challenges? How do you measure time, measure a year by the good milestones, the little ordinary stuff, and let that be enough to overcome some of the bigger sadnesses, the bigger griefs, the bigger challenges and roadblocks? Because I'll not lie, from 2019 until now, our family has been hit by quite a few. I'm not going to get into them today, but I was at a point when I started writing this book that I just said, I want a way to count a year, to remind myself that there's all these little joys every single day. There's something that a joy, and those little joys really aren't little joys, because there's no such thing as a small joy. When you add them all up, it's enough to combat anything that comes through. And talk about going through your your old memories, zipping all the way back, many, many years to the 1990s. I'll sort of date myself here. But in the 1990s, this traveling group of a musical came to my town. It was a musical called Rent that came in the 1990s. And they promised us, poor teenagers, that if we would only camp out and become first in line, we could have front row tickets for $20. That was like a thing that was set for this particular new musical out of Broadway. And so, of course, as a teenager, I got my sleeping bag and slept on cement, with my friends outside. It was the best night, right? And then we got front row tickets and got to belt out how many minutes are in a year in the song Seasons of Love, right? So I've known how many minutes are in a year for a very long time. And I've always thought, I kind of thought back to that. Hey, I need a way for myself how to count a year. Time seems to have been a very weird topic since 2020, since time sort of stood still. And I thought, if it's like that for me, it's like that for kids, for sure. How do I give kids sort of a roadmap for how to count a year, how to measure it in a silly way, how to measure it in a mathematical way, and how to make sense of it all, and yet, feel something at the same time, that it's not just an informational book. So that's really all of it sort of coming together, overcoming some huge challenges to add that to my life's work and make it something that totally speaks and is fun for kids.
We must really be in sync, because before you were talking about Rent, I'm writing down some notes, and I write, how do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, miles,
and laughter,
and stripe. And besides, I just got back from seeing Back to the Future, the musical on Broadway, but still nothing trumps, I think Phantom is close, but nothing trumps Rent. And just, again, I was kind of leaning into that. That's the reason why I was writing into that. And after seeing Rent so many times and stepping into the children's literature world myself, I was wondering, is there a way to convey that to kids? Because Rent, no spoilers if you haven't seen Rent yet, the movie or the musical, but it's meant for more mature audiences, right? We can't put Rent in front of kids and say, here you go. So the way that you were able to create a very fun, carefree, kid-centric way of connecting that message with kids, and the work that you and Julian have done together with this book, I want to talk about that as well too, because for those who have been with the Children's Book Spotlight series since day one, or you've just joined us along the way, in the world of publishing, you have you as an author, and then there is the artist, the illustrator that comes in from the publisher. Obviously, if you're self-published, you can, be on the phone with your illustrator every night, eat popcorn and talk about how your day is. But that's not the case when you're working in the published world. And so you really have to trust the fact that there's someone out there that really sees the heart, sees the intention, sees the purity, sees the direction in which you want to go with this message. Talk to us about the experience of working with Beach Lane Books, with Simon & Schuster, with Julian, and just seeing that original vision that you had in your mind's eye, and then seeing how it was coming to form and shape. Can you take us through the experience of the initial creation phase and the process of how it really came to life? And really just, the vibrancy of the book, it's just something that stands out in such a beautiful way for kids.
So this book looks exactly how I pictured it when I wrote it. Julian Chung is a master artist, illustrator. And they say a lot of times you don't get to meet your illustrator, you never get to talk to your illustrator, you don't get to see the original art. I've gotten to see the original art for this. I've gotten to meet Julian. We didn't meet in person while we were working on the book, but just before it came out, we were both at a show together in New York, and I heard that he was in the room, and I went around until I found him. And so we found each other. We took a picture. Andrea Welch is our editor at Beach Lane, and let me tell you, she was fantastic and phenomenal. This team, it was a dream, working together. The way the book looks, how you can count, the 364 marbles on the end paper, and kids will be like, where's the next one? And the lion is holding it. That lion character is all the imagination of Julian Chung. He brought that lion to be the playful interaction with the main kid. in the book, and it just makes it funny, right? You know, the lion is wearing underwear, you know, and then yeah, I mean, there's jokes, right? Like, you know, how we count your hopefully 365 pairs of underwear, or 366 if it's a leap year. Yeah, the way the colors are really make the numbers pop on every single page. So not just the numerical like typeface, the numbers, but also like on counting the year in 52, like Friday night movie night popcorn spills, there's 52, you know, buckets of popcorn on the page, right? When you're cleaning the fish tank once a month, there's 12 fish right on that page. So visually representing 365, I mean, with phases of the moon are on there, like it's pretty cool how it's been. Really, it's a visual book just as much as it is a numbers book. It's very visually vibrant. So I think it reaches a lot of different readers, and that's a testament to how I think Andrea and I just step back a little bit and let Julian do his thing, what he does, because he's very, very good at design and at art that looks very minimal, but really when you get to it, there's a lot going on. And probably my favorite is when you find out how many hours there are in a year, because you're waiting from one birthday to the next, right? You know, kids always ask that. I remember my kids asking, as soon as their birthday party is over, like, how long until next year? So they get the answer, which is like 8,760 hours. And there's a little like snail carrying the next birthday present like across the screen, right? This tiny little snail, because of how slow it sounds when we put it in a bigger number term like that.
One of the things I can remember from my time as childhood and just kind of looking back and now seeing, you know, when I read to kids out here in San Diego, one of the things kids will still ask is like the infamous, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Or when is this going to happen? So the fact that, again, you're really connecting with kids' curiosity through the course of the book as well, too. And again, just doing it in a very light and carefree way. And this is also one of the main reasons why I also love this book as well, too, is because, you know, the world over the past couple of years and even before then, it's been like a really serious place. And our kids have gone through, they were already going through what they were going through before the pandemic. And then there was the pandemic. So there was anything and everything, such as, you know, everything tied to Black Lives Matter and the pandemic and political, like all these things kids saw. Kids really need to experience this kind of message over and over. And this is one of the great things about 365 How to Count a Years, is that you can keep going back to this book over and over and over again. Being a Leo on Mind of Things and really starting to enjoy my sleep that much more, my favorite illustration spread is the 52 sleep in Saturdays. And again, like when we think of a lion, we can think of this ferocious king of the jungle, and that's true. But again, Julian takes the time to make this line like this adorable creature, this connective creature. When you see the different spreads throughout the course of the book, again, it's almost like this magical journey, which is really cool as well. Specifically speaking, what do you hope that kids take away when they read this book, when they go back to it over and over again? What are some of the specific takeaways that you hope that they learn? And then with parents and educators, obviously, one of the reasons why you're one of the best in the industry, you do your part to connect to the kids, but you also can empathize where parents and educators are. And now they're starting to be, we're starting to be more on the other side of the pandemic, but parents and educators, they're still stretched. Maybe they're not overstretched in the way in which they were, but they're still needing some support as well, too. So what are some of the specific hopes and messages that you hope that parents and educators will take away from 365 How to Count a Year?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of people shudder when they think about like math and numbers. It's not a topic that a lot of busy or tired parents probably want to, you know, extend their day with math lessons. This just makes it's really not, it doesn't feel like math at all, right? But here's what it is. It's grouping, it's conversions, it's, you know, it's counting, it's all of these things. But set with humor and also with heart, right? So you read it, you're laughing. And at the end, hopefully, you know, when it invites you to, you know, realize that 1 year is just one marvelous collage in the life of you, and invites them like, how will you count your year, with all kinds of examples in the back. will be like, wow, I can use any kind of calendar. Maybe my family uses a certain kind of cultural or religious or traditional calendar. You can talk about, it's like, for me, my books, I always say, are a jumping off point for another fun activity or a conversation. Or, you could just have a birthday party. It's a birthday book, right? And so, the messages here is that there's not one way to do anything. Like, generally, yes, we follow this calendar where I live, that there's 365 days in a year. The weeks start with Sunday and go to Saturday. And, we have these 12 calendar months, and every 4 years we have this one extra day that's a leap year to make up for the fact that it's not even. But you don't have to do it that way, right? And that's the beauty of both math and life, is that there's more than one way to measure something or count something. And measurement is something that kids learn from a very young age on almost every curriculum in every state. They learn that, we have to measure things, and there's sort of a standard of measurement, something we base it against. And then if we use a different unit, we kind of switch it from one to another using math. And this is a way that, it encompasses all that, but it doesn't feel like a lesson. That's really what I want, is it just feels like fun because it incorporates their lives. Things like sleeping in on Saturday or getting naked and splashing in the bath on Sunday, whatever kind of weekend rituals. We have 52 weekends in a year, right? And how many times do we call up our friends and say, it's the weekend? Or we think, thank goodness it's Friday. And so, you could measure a year in weekends. You could measure a year in, things that you do monthly as well. And so, taking a trip to the mailbox, if you get a monthly magazine subscription, that's a way that you could measure the year, is like 1 year of subscriptions, something that you do every month like that. Or your teacher switching the bulletin board once every month. For example, those are ways that you could measure if time is difficult to measure in the other ways. My son really had a hard time sometimes understanding, time, like anything that was tomorrow was also next week, difficult to sort of predict, especially when it came to future. So this just breaks it down visually on the page, numerically, for those kids who can understand, okay, that number is much bigger than this number on the number line. But also, if those numbers aren't necessarily the grasping point for a parent or a student, you can measure it in any way that you want. And so I just added today some educator resources to the mirandapaul.com/for-teachers page. So that I have a teacher resource page, and there's a chip challenge. So you just count how long it takes you to eat a bag of your favorite snack, like potato chips. And then you can calculate, like, how many chips, if I just ate chips all year, like, how many chips could I eat in a year? Or blinking, like, how many times do you blink? You just count. You can't obviously count every time you blink in a year. That would be just impossible. You do nothing else but stare in front of the mirror. But you can do an estimate or a calculation like the estimates in the book by just measuring a short section and see how many times you blink. And then using a calculator or multiplying, you can figure out, like, how many times might I blink in a year. And so there's activities like that would extend for those people who do homeschooling or who are teachers or librarians and want activities to help kids with estimation, calculation, and conversions. But they're like fun, they're fun ones. So those are the takeaways, really, from 365.
Being able to connect with this message in the way in which you are, there's many people as adults, for example, it can just be like, you get to New Year's Eve, and how many times do people say, this is going to be the best year ever? And you can hear, like, they're trying to fake it, where it's like, okay, I'm going to go in and say, sure, why not? But it's people are so used to, okay, well, this year was this way, and this year was this way. And just really through this book, and this is why I think this is like a great resource for adults, even if you don't have any kids, to be able to go into the new year with hope and faith and optimism and a sense of playfulness. As we begin to wind down our time, why do you feel that word, especially playfulness, is important, not only for kids in 2024, but also for us as big kids?
Wow. My husband and I both say that playfulness is important because if you take everything so seriously, when we're like in a serious mode, we tend to focus on like the harder things, right? The challenges. When we're playful, we're looking for the whimsical, we're looking for the fun, and every little thing, we don't overlook it, right? When we're too serious, we overlook sort of little things because we're somehow focused on something very big or serious, right? But when we're in play mode, everything is game because we're just playing, right? So it's kind of like when I'm drafting, I don't like to draft on my computer. It feels serious, right? It feels like I'm on assignment. I like to draft on a piece of paper, a notebook, something that feels like it's a throwaway thing. Because if I write down a silly idea on something that might get thrown away anyway, it's okay. If I'm sitting there typing serious, silly stuff on my computer, it somehow feels serious because I'm typing it. Because I'm from that generation where I didn't grow up, I didn't have internet, right? As a young kid, right? So I feel that my mind is just a little more playful, thinking, oh, I'm just writing this down. It's probably a throwaway nothing. But it's amazing how open we are when we're in a mode of playfulness, right? So for me, like, I always like to have back matter in my books. My books tend to be very informational. They can be used in the classroom. This is a very fun and funny book as well. It is informational. So when I got to the back matter, and I'm not sure if everyone here understands, back matter are like extra pages in the back of the book that just give you like more. And so in the back of this book, there's like what is a calendar and how we could creatively count our year. And it's got examples for how you could count a year. And like some of them are very serious. Like you could have 47 million heartbeats in a year if you're a kid. But I also wanted to make sure that, it's not just serious. We don't just have to count our year and serious things. So we've got like bathroom time, like how much time you spend in the bathroom, which could be 250 hours, which is 2,500 PPs and more than 5,000 farts, but not all in the bathroom. So, just reminding everybody, let's not take anything too seriously, right? You can literally count anything, you can measure in anything. Math is everywhere. Math is silly. Math is funny. Math is cool, and it doesn't have to feel like math, right?
You're absolutely correct. The endorsements and the high praise keeps coming on in for 365 how to count a year. So we're going to be adding one to the mix. Again, if you were movie buffs in the 80s or 90s and the early 2000s, I believe you remember the late Siskel and Ebert, and they would always give 2 thumbs up if they loved a movie. Well, one of the newest rankings over the course of these past several months or so, now nearly approaching a year in the world of children's literature, thanks to my little guy, little Forrest, and he's still chewing on his little collagen treat. When little Forrest enjoys a children's book, he gives it 2 paws up. So little Forrest has given 365 How to Count a Year 2 paws up in the process. We encourage you to be able to get your copy of 365 How to Count a Year and have some fun along the way. Head on over to Miranda's official website, which we've included in the description below, or Amazon.com. Of course, when you're on Amazon.com, you can leave a 5-star review for 365 How to Count a Year. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for Miranda to let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books as well. You can head on over to your favorite children's or independent bookstore to get your copy of 365 How to Count a Year. You can also head on over to your favorite local library and check out your copy of 365 How to Count a Year there. If they are not stocked at your local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, make that kind recommendation that they do for all educators all across the country. If you would like to schedule your own author's school visit with Miranda as part of the 2023-2024 school year, we've included her website in the description below as well to continue to keep the conversation flowing post-Children's Book Spotlight series. We've also included Miranda's social media platforms in the description below. And in addition, we've also included links to Miranda's previous trolley stops in the program. Again, we go back to, I believe, episode number 50, and there may have even been another episode along the way, but we talked Little Libraries, Big Heroes, Speak Up, Peace episodes number 50, 83, and 111. We've included all of that and then some in the description below. Raise your hand if you have had fun. On episode number 187 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, hands for Miranda, hands for myself, hands from the little ones on screen. As we like to say, that means mission accomplished, job well done. And as we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. So we, of course, want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight series. But before we conclude this episode, if these messages, because we've talked about more than one message here on the Children's Book Spotlight series this week, especially the messages of fun and playfulness, and really looking forward to the year ahead with hope and faith and fun and optimism and playfulness. That's the big word. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series, if you feel that it needs to be shared with someone in need, again, if you haven't had the chance to do so, feel free to subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop that you have been enjoying, episode number 187 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. There are many more magical trolley stops to come. We still have a few more as part of our 5-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series. So if you are a children's or middle grade author and would love to share your inspiring story in the release of your new children's book or middle grade book on the Children's Book Spotlight series, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or you can connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen, Facebook, Instagram, and as we like to refer to it as the artist formerly known as Twitter, that is X, all at PR from the Heart. Of course, we're looking forward to spending some quality time depending upon when you are watching this episode. They already may be available. We are about ready to shuffle on off over to Pittsburgh to spend some quality time with one of our favorite neighbors, David Newell, who played the beloved Mr. McFeely on the popular long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. If you're a children's author and are interested in having David and I review your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us via our official website, prfromtheheart.com. And if you're a self-published or published author, we are doing our part to be able to help many of the top names in the world of children's literature share their inspiring stories with children, parents, families, and educators all across the country and all around the world through the media. So if you're interested in seeing how we can be of service to you at PR from the Heart, as we are going to be approaching our 10-year anniversary next year, prfromtheheart.com is the way in which you can connect with us. So again, we bring in the spirit of our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers. He reminds us in every way, shape, and form to remember how special that we are in the process. Through his natural weight, he helped us to remind us of that. There's 143 that's associated with Mr. Rogers. He weighed 143 pounds for his natural adult life. 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. As Miranda was very kind to give us some of her free time here this week, we share our 3 favorite numbers. That's 243. 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. That is our reminder to all of you that we like you, that we love you just the way that you are whole, healthy, complete, perfect, special, just the way that you are, that we like you, that we love you just the way that you are. So for Miranda Paul, for little Forrest, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you again for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight series, for your continued support of children's authors and illustrators all across the country and all around the world, such as Miranda Paul, who are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books, for the pillars of our community, local libraries, and children's and independent bookstores who are truly making a difference in the lives of children and us as big kids as well, too. But again, above all else, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.